All right, so we're gonna get started. I see on the agenda, we're gonna skip any approval minutes because they're not ready, so we'll just do two sets next time. Um, as far as public participation, is there anybody here from the public that wants to participate or have any questions for us?
There is not.
There is not. I know a lot of people are starting to get excited because they see stuff happening at the high school. So people just still want to know if the pool is connected to the high school. So I do try to answer a lot of questions about that. But yeah, I'll just leave it over to Ben then for all the updates and whatever order you need to go into.
Sure. Yes, I appreciate it. And
Yep.
if you could share your screen,
I'll share my screen.
Perfect. And thank you all for joining us on a Friday. We did want to just share with you today, the project reached the 60% construction document milestone last month. So the design team has, further progressed the construction documents from the previous DD level. So we'll be sharing the extent of, the progress and some new renderings, exterior and interior of the natatorium, which shows, some of the further detail and some of the slight changes that have taken place since our last checkpoint. Just in terms of just overall schedule, I'll just say, Fontaine, as Cora said, there's been some work on site starting to look a little bit different out there. So they're executing the enabling package right now. So trying to take care of all the utility relocations that need to happen, the contractor parking lot, all the site fencing, erosion control, all those good things to set up the site so that Fontaine is ready to plug away at the project this fall. And so that, we're out of the way of the regular operations of the school when that gets started back up. So we can go to the next slide. And Aviva, I can walk through the cost estimating and then we'll kick it over.
Yeah, perfect.
So on the slide here is just a visual of where the cost estimate process, where we left off with, that was that schematic design. So you can see the construction costs, which is boxed out in red there, 13,997,536. So that was where we're at the schematic design estimate. And then Aviva, if you could move to the next one. And then if you recall, our next step in the phase was design development. So we estimated, the two estimators from Fontaine and the design team estimated at that point, and we were at 13,882,241. And then if we go to the next slide, this is where we are currently at. So last month, the design estimating team and the Fontaine estimating team met. We went through the estimates in a reconciliation process, and the reconciled estimate came out to be 13,995,104. So you can see between those three slides, we're floating right around, hovering around the same number. The bottom line, you can see the 16,795,536. So the total project budget has not changed. We continue to take a look at the construction costs at each of these checkpoints as we're progressing the documents, as changes are made, and just making sure we're taking the pulse of the budget as we go along. So this is a promising sign. We haven't seen much fluctuation in that number as we're at the 60%. So we're getting very close to bid day here. So hopefully those numbers are not changing too much. We will do this process again when the project team completes the 90% construction documents. We will sit down and take another look at the budget, but this seems like promising news at this point. So any questions regarding the budget process there before we get into some of the design updates? All right, Aviva, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you. So just to talk a little bit about where we are in design, here's an updated site plan. Not a lot has really changed with regards to the pool, but we've been, continuing the coordination between the pool and school projects in terms of making sure that the site, meets all of the needs of, entrances and exits to the pool, and having those be the required distances from the fire lane and all that good stuff. Just a reminder of sort of where we were the last time we had a full rendering of the interior, and here's where we are right now. Just a couple of things to point out that we've been working on in the most recent phase. 60% CDs is often very focused on coordination between different engineering and design disciplines. So we spent quite a lot of focus on making sure that the mechanical system and the structural system are coordinated with each other, that the mechanical chases are fully incorporated into the architectural design. We've actually sort of called them out in a contrasting ground face block color that's also mirrored on the opposite side of the pool between the windows, coordinating the trench drain between architectural, pool, and plumbing designers, making sure we have enough acoustic treatment because pools can be very loud spaces, and generally working on items for the design. Here's a couple of more images of what we were working on the lobby, figuring out the materials for the lockers in the locker room, and coming up with a materials palette for that, some of which we shared last time. Further developing the pool office, making sure that that has a lot of visual ability to see out to the pool space, out to the lobby, to the hallway, have very good monitoring of the site. And I'll turn it over to Brian to talk a little bit about the exterior design. Or does
Thanks,
anybody,
Aviva.
I guess before I shift to exterior design, does anybody have interior questions or want me to go back to any of those slides?
Do have one question, Bruce Fenney. I'm assuming you have carried over the building automation system and incorporated it into the pool facility as well, to obviously mirror the school building itself as well.
That's my understanding, that we're having the buildings tied into each other in a number of ways. Obviously, there are certain elements that want to be controlled directly at the pool area, but there's also certain elements that want to be controlled from the school. Certain types of announcements and things like that would want to come from the school office if they were happening, but most of the AV system is happening directly in the pool office. So yeah, we're working on that, and we'll be continuing in 90% to review those types of coordination elements.
What's the seating capacity look like? And Cora, I saw you on we've got what, 120, 130 Marlin swimmers. What's another big team? Springfield, probably 100 swimmers.
Yeah, so the biggest teams that we swim against are the Springfield Sharks, the West Side Torpedoes, and Minnechaug, or the Falcons in Wilbraham. And they are, those are the four biggest teams this summer, and we all tend to be smaller in the summer. And we are all hovering at the champs meet, which was a couple weekends ago. We were all at 70 at champs, but most of us had like 90 or more on our summer rosters. This past winter, we had just over 100 on ours. And I think actually Long Meadow had the most. They had 120 kids on their team. There are big teams that we will swim, which will be great because we'll have more pool space. And I do think, and I know, like for Kevin, we just put in our request for all the winter stuff for the Marlins is hopefully during meets trying to have like the small gym or whatever is right close to where we are for extra carryover space, because I don't think we would be able to have all teams on the deck, which would be different for high school, because in high school both teams can be on the deck, but for dual rec meets, it would not be enough space for 100 plus teams on like fire hazard wise on the pool deck.
Yeah, because you get 200 swimmers plus,
Families.
Families plus.
So yeah, to answer the question about seating capacity, we've got seating for about 235 people at the main bleachers, but the seating capacity on the other side is, more like 36, which we talked about being sort of the people, most immediately on deck for the next swim, but not for the whole team, certainly. And as Cora mentioned, we've been looking at the ability to use the space just inside, the alternate PE room just inside the school from the pool for that use.
Bruce, I see you have a question.
Yes, I'm just looking at the lighting, and it may be just the conceptual drawing, because I know I have had trouble in the past, obviously accessing some of the equipment that is over the pool. Are the lights and everything, if obviously once you go bad, are they accessible from the deck surrounding the pool, or is there some kind of lift that is going to be required to change out fixtures or bulbs, or I'm assuming they're LEDs?
Great question. The lights are, in fact, over the deck. They're close to the pool, but they are designed to be accessible from the deck.
Thank you.
Yeah, I realize in the perspective of this one, especially this line of lights looks pretty close to the edge there, but it is, that's sort of a visual of the angle. It's over the deck.
Aviva, have we gotten to the point where we're doing photometrics, or is that down the road?
We've done some daylight studies for the daylighting, and Brian could maybe talk a little bit more about that when he updates you on the exterior, or now.
Okay, just want to make sure that we're remaining mindful. There's an awful lot of dark pools out there.
Yep, and I do know that we will be doing photometrics or reviewing the photometrics. I think we've already done a round for the electrical lighting, and we'll do another round at 90%.
Great, thank you.
I just want to point out that for people who went to the West Springfield pool when we did the walk around at their pool, that's where we had champs 2 weeks ago. And this seating over here on the right side that you're seeing is more substantial than the seating that they have at their pool. And also the trench that goes around the exterior of the pool. They did a really fabulous job with, I mean, I think there was over 700 swimmers at least during the course of a day and a half. They had the big like floor fans going, but that trench in between sessions, it really helped keep the deck super dry. And so I just want to say, like, having that put in there looks really great. And it was super useful during the big, huge meet that we just had. So, and they have a lot of light coming in from one side of their pool. And I don't know, Steve, you were there, you were there in an afternoon. I think it was pretty good and very well lit. I don't know if you have any comments.
It was pretty good, Cora. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not too far down the road without paying careful attention to that.
Right. Okay.
Right, because it affects the entire space.
Right.
I have a couple quick questions. Has the sound system location and the scoreboard location been finalized? And then also the side opposite from the bleachers. We've really benefited from that extra seating opposite the bleachers and extra storage opposite the bleachers. So anything you can do to increase some seating for teams opposite side of the bleachers and increase storage for teams opposite side of the bleachers would be great.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to look back to see if there was any possibility to increase the amount of seating. We have some limitations based on access doors and things like that. But we are intending for this seating, rather than to be sort of standard bench seating, or sort of standard bleacher seating, to be a custom fixture that can have storage built into it, so that the teams the swimmers who are on deck can have their bags, with their items and their goggles, etc., with them. In terms of other items that are designed in that we were thinking about over the course of this, we've shown they're just sort of rendered as red right now, but we were thinking that this is probably the best place to display banners. And if I go back to the first slide, which shows from the other direction, this is the location that we had discussed at previous meetings as the best location for the scoreboard, which is at the end, at the starting block, so that as you're coming back on the end of your swim, you're looking towards the scoreboard. And also for the 2 record boards, one for Marlins and one for Spartans.
Great, thank you.
Any other interiors questions? Great, I will turn it over to Brian. Let me get back to the first exteriors slide.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm sure with the Olympics going on, the competitive swimming folks are all fired up. So exciting to see advancement here. I'm going to just sort of walk you through, as Ben said, some of the the details that have developed on the exterior, and also, some slight changes, but there's nothing that we are going to show today that isn't already accounted for in the 60% CD set. And sort of maybe the big three topics here that we've been thinking about are the idea of a community project, that this isn't just the high school, it's really a community resource, and the pool is a huge part of that. But we want the architecture to read as one building, right? It's one sort of complex. And so we've been working to unify the expression architecturally, and to make it cohesive. The changes that have occurred are noted here, and some of these go back to schematic design. They were already being advanced into design development, such as on the left side of the building. And I think the angle of sun is fairly accurate here for, kind of an afternoon, where the windows on that left side that are in shadow are mainly facing north. You might get some direct sunlight through them in the summertime, but largely those are going to have good sort of north light, where there's more of sort of a passive light that comes in on that end. So daylighting is a second sort of topic that we're tending to as we advance the design. I would say the third topic is really being economical and making sure that everything is highly maintainable. And so there have been some of these updates. If we move to the right-hand side, the more sort of front of the pool building, if you will, that has those white colored openings. So that's a translucent glazing, which, to Steve's point about daylighting, I think that we took a big step forward in terms of quality of interior daylighting by introducing this element. So it's not the old sort of plastic translucent panels that you might see on some schools. These are truly glass unit that has a fiberglass mat inside of it. So what it does is it takes the light and it diffuses it, throws it into the room, very deep into the room. So we get good even daylighting inside the natatorium. And from the outside, it sort of has the appearance of like a rice paper. It is fairly bright white, so we think that we've rendered that fairly accurately. But when it's backlit, it's much softer in terms of the expression. In terms of the masonry, we are, again, in terms of cohesiveness, continuing the material logic of the high school over to the natatorium. So we think it's a beautiful and economical brick matrix, which is a combination of slightly different colors and sheens of brick that make sort of a mottled effect on that lighter color. And then we're using a darker brick to create the sense of something like an arcade. So creating a rhythm on the face of the building it's fairly flat, but we've introduced a series of score lines to give it some texture. And it goes back to this story of tying back to the redstone quarries and having the sense of like a carved and tactile element that you can really kind of experience as you walk by the building. So that's an important feature here. Looking at near the entry, which is very glassy. So the entry vestibule, which opens both on this front side and on the back side from the fields complex, that's very transparent. There's good daylight going into it. It's very apparent sort of where the entry is. We have these hovering canopies over them, so there's a bit of sheltering, and it's pretty obvious where the entry is. If we peek at the next version of the slide here, so the pictures of the actual materials pop up where you get a sense of kind of the actual texture of that brick. We have a granite base, which is fairly modest in its height, but it's extremely durable. And so will stand up to any abuse and sort of wintertime maintenance and all those things. We do have some elements of pre-finished aluminum. So those bands that go over the windows have sort of a metallic, kind of bronzy color to them. The rendering's not 100% accurate. So the picture is a little bit more accurate. For the 90% set that will be upcoming, we're going to really step up the quality of the renderings. So that's something you'll see kind of in the next round. The last slide is really just sort of giving a better sense of what that translucent glazing is like. So you will get the sense that it has sort of a transparency to it, but it's really you're not going to see much through it except for shadows. And it is truly a glazed unit that's really it's maintained the same way that glass is. So there are no external appendages. We used to have a series of extruded aluminum fins that were trying to manage the daylight from outside. They are expensive, so we replaced those with this type of glass unit. Again, it's included in the cost model right now. Relative to those other examples I mentioned that are sort of the plastic version of this, these units will not discolor over time. They won't turn yellow. So we think it's a good long-term solution. And those are the updates on the exterior. And we look forward to presenting those more advanced views in the future. Are there any questions?
Can you remind me what the access egress is, that main door, where that is relative to parking, one, and then two for high school student access?
Yeah, no, I don't know, Aviva, if you have a larger plan, or if you want to walk through this.
I don't, but I can walk through it here. So from the high school, this is the main gymnasium, and the sort of main corridor of B Wing does continue straight down to the connector to the pool. So for high school student access, they would come from the locker rooms, either around or through, and to the pool. From the parking lot, there is parking at the rear, and I don't recall if the intention is for some of that parking to be designated for the pool. I think some of it may be, and then there's also, the larger parking here. And so that is where, as Brian mentioned, this is the main entry that we were seeing in that rendering just now. This is the entry from the fields and from this parking area. Both of those have strong canopy, language to make it very clear that this is your entry point. And from an egress perspective, in a fire condition, obviously, where safety is paramount, there are also doors within the pool space. I believe the expectation is that those will be exit only. So those won't be an entry to the building, only an exit from the building. And that's what you see on this sort of northmost corner here.
Any other questions about the exterior of the building? Okay, I'm not sure who's up next.
Danielle, would you like to give us an update on construction?
Yes, so I think you said at the beginning we're working on enabling for the whole project just to get ourselves separated before kids come back. And on the pool in particular, we received bids from our steel, concrete, and site work contractors. So we're working in the office now, trying to level everybody and make sure we're looking at, equivalent pricing. Once we feel comfortable, we'll pick the low contractor for all three packages, and we will try and set up some scope reviews for these contractors because they are not a filed sub bid, we'll do site, full building and pool together so that we have the same contractor working on those. And then we're hoping to finish the review, get a final bid from everybody, and start to award contracts towards the end of August or any questions?
Okay, and Ben, is there anybody else that needs to go and give updates?
No, I believe that's all we had planned for you folks. So if there are any last questions, otherwise, I mean, I know we don't have a next meeting set up. I think we probably will play it by ear. If you guys are okay with that, I know we're working towards the 90% CDs. So probably makes sense once we're complete with that to sit down with you folks, but we can definitely reach out when we think it's an appropriate point to meet.
So are we working on the same timeline as the overall high school? So when the doors open to the high school, the doors will also open to the pool at the same time?
That's correct. Yes. The substantial completion date is the same for both the school and the pool of July of the summer 2026.
All right, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Super. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Good job, everyone.
Anyone opposed? Donna, are you approving or abstaining? All right, great. So we'll look forward to hearing from Ben and your team about next potential meeting. And everyone enjoy the rest of your short-lived summer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.